Hello, this is Miriam, holistic life coach and mind body practitioner at Pain Outside the Box. And today I'm going to be explaining how pain conditioning works and how you can overcome the conditioning of chronic pain to eventually become symptom-free. So first of all, what is pain conditioning? So conditioning refers to a process whereby the brain learns to interpret certain activities or situations as dangerous, and these situations or activities, they become your triggers. So as your triggers, these activities may cause sensations like discomfort or pain or other psychosomatic sensations, okay? And the concept to remember with conditioning is that it's not the result of the body experiencing an injury, but it is a result of the brain interpreting a condition, a situation, which can also be like a movement, as potentially dangerous, and therefore creating pain in the body as a result. And this is common in people with chronic pain. In fact, most cases of chronic pain involve conditioning, whereby the individual learns to associate certain activities or movements with pain. So they can be anything from sitting down to walking, running, any movement, okay, involving any part of the body. And this usually starts with either a real injury, so the person really got a little bit injured, and because of that, he experienced acute pain, and he would have started to fear the same injury reoccurring. So during the same kind of activity, such as like running or walking, the individual would start to associate that activity with pain because of the injury he had experienced. And even when the injury is long healed and gone, this individual can eventually learn to keep associating that activity with pain and thus re-experience pain every time he engages in it. So this is what we know of as pain conditioning. The process was discovered by Pavlov. Most of you might be familiar with the story of Pavlov's dogs, whereby he realized that dogs didn't only salivate at the sight and smell of food, but they could also learn how to automatically salivate at the sound of a metronome. So basically the experiment involved playing the sound of the metronome each time these dogs were fed. So they learned to associate this sound with eating. And the interesting thing is that eventually these dogs would generate the same physiological changes, which is the salivation in their body, at the sound of the metronome on its own, without the presence of food. So this is what's the most important thing to keep in mind, that these dogs, initially, they didn't salivate at the sound of this metronome because it meant nothing to them. But once they built an association between this sound and the food, and because this food generated this salivation physiological process, and then they actually learned how to generate the same process even without the food. So this is what conditioning is. The brain learns to pick up on certain cues, make associations, okay? And as a result, the body may behave differently. And this is why pain most of the time becomes chronic, because when there is no injury still present, the only thing that is still alive and active is this program, okay? This program of associating whatever activity, whatever movement with the potential presence of pain. And this process usually happens so quickly that you don't have to consciously think about it. You don't go about saying, oh, I'm walking, now I'm going to get the pain. Well, sometimes maybe you do, but you don't even need to be consciously thinking this. The pain would eventually start coming on, even when you're not thinking about it, just because you are walking, because the brain associates that movement with pain. So how do you go about reversing the process of conditioning? So I'm going to give you 2 tips in this video, okay? The first one is to be as sure as you can, as certain as you can, that your body is not damaged and your body is not injured. Why? Because for as long as we attribute our symptoms to a potential injury or to a damage in the body, it will be very difficult to reprogram our brains, because our brains will keep on perceiving a threat whenever we engage ourselves in an activity that usually generates pain. So for example, let's say I have sciatica pain, but I think that it is due to some damage in my back, even though this came out of nowhere. But for as long as I think that the sciatica pain is due to this pressure in my back, each time I'm walking, my brain is saying I am putting more pressure, I am aggravating the area. So these are the unconscious thoughts going on when you blame your pain on something outside of yourself, on an injury or damage. So the most important thing to overcome conditioning is to realize that you have developed pain conditioning, is to accept that what's happening each and every time you get the pain during a similar activity or situation is simply conditioning and nothing else, okay? And as I always say, this doesn't mean that it's all in your head. No, conditioning always involves a physiological process. Just like in the case of the dog salivating, right? The saliva is real, but the process started in the association they had formed in the brain. And it could be the same when it comes to pain while sitting down, while typing, while walking and engaging in any sort of activity. If it always comes up during the same activity consistently, it's very likely a process of conditioning unless you have been recently injured. Okay, so that's number 1. Try to get rid of doubt. By learning more about TMS and mind-body syndrome, you will be more able to let go of these doubts and the physical origins of pain. Just learning the science behind chronic pain will help you with this, because you will learn that chronic pain is often not due to a physical damage, but due to a psychological process. So that's number 1, letting go of doubt. Number 2, also really important, is to start creating positive experiences. So what do I mean by that? So if you are conditioned to be in pain, let's say while walking, you do not go about hiking for 10, 20 kilometers as a way of challenging your pain. Why? Because by doing that, you are overwhelming yourself and you are likely to create a negative experience. So you are more likely to experience a flare-up in symptoms if you just go all out with whatever activity you plan to do. So if that activity is usually associated with symptoms, with pain, you would need to start from the lowest intensity, lowest level form of that activity, okay? So with walking, it could be just a 5-minute walk. For some people, it will be just a 1-minute walk, okay? Or a walk around the house. Because the important thing is to do this activity that's involved in the conditioning, but with minimal pain. By doing it with minimal pain, you will be more able to enjoy the activity. Let's say you're shopping, but for a really short time in just one shop, you will be more able to be distracted during the shopping, be interested in what's going on around you if you have minimal pain. And as you go back home after that short duration activity, you will be able to say, I actually enjoyed it, or the pain didn't bother me as much. When that happens, you've created a positive experience. And the brain needs positive experiences in order to rewire, in order to undo this process of conditioning. So ideally what you would do, if that's the case with you, you would go shopping or walking again for a short duration, for the rest of the week, as much as you can. So as much as you can, you need to create these positive, minimal pain experiences, okay? You need to expose yourself to your trigger, but in a safe way, all right? Never in an overwhelming way that would cause a full-blown flare-up and scare you, all right? Because that would further strengthen the conditioning process, not undo it. So this is why every individual has to think of his or her limits and how to challenge those limits in a safe, non-overwhelming way. Okay. Another example I can give is like with sitting. So if sitting on a hard surface really triggers pain, you would start by sitting on like a softer surface first for a shorter duration. You would try to make that short duration activity as distracting and enjoyable as possible. So for example, you could watch a short, entertaining video, 5-minute video or whatever. If you manage to watch that video and enjoy it and not be too bothered by the pain, then the next day you can either watch it again or you can watch another entertaining video that's a little bit longer, for example, for as long as you don't feel like you are pushing yourself to an extent that you start feeling scared or helpless or disappointed because of the symptoms. Okay? And then eventually you would work your way up, sitting for longer, sitting on different kinds of surfaces while having other positive experiences. So it's all about having positive or even at least neutral experiences, okay, while engaging in this triggering activity. So personally, I believe that is the number one way, actually, how to start undoing the process of conditioning. If you'd like to learn more about reversing chronic pain and healing it completely, I encourage you to check out my full pain-free breakthrough program, where I guide you through the steps involved, not just through working with the physical aspect of pain conditioning, but also working with other psychological aspects of chronic pain. All right, so that's all from me for today, and I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.